This is John Black, Super Chemist. Another easy, simple video showing how to get anhydrous calcium chloride. Now, this is not a pure product. This is what the MSDS says on damp red. As you can see, the percentages don't add up really. I mean, it could be 60 and 5 is 70. You know what I mean? Anyways, I don't really use this to try to have a pure calcium chloride. The only thing you can use it for is a desiccator. So I don't really care about the other, like these salts. They're probably anhydrous too, and will soak up water. So, but the main thing that you can use it for is since it's anhydrous, because its whole purpose is to absorb water. You know, damp rid, moisture absorber. So that's its job. And basically, this is used as a drying agent. I use magnesium sulfate a lot of times, but this is a good drying agent too. And sometimes you have to use this one because the magnesium sulfate will react. So this is a good thing to have. Remember, before you use any drying agent, make sure that it doesn't react with what you're putting it in to where there's going to be a fire, an explosion. Make sure it doesn't react. Now, always keep in mind, you never want to use calcium chloride to dry alcohols, especially smaller alcohols like methanol, ethanol, isopropanol. They form coordination complexes with the alcohol, and instead of grabbing the water and getting it out, which is what you want, it'll grab the alcohol and take it out and put it in its crystalline lattice. That's not what you want. So I always use like magnesium sulfate or molecular sieves. Now, if you're trying to get alcohol out, like let's say you're making diethyl ether and you want to get the water and alcohol out of there, you know, the trace amounts, you could throw some calcium chloride in there and it will soak up some of the alcohol too. So it'd be good for something like that. Or if you're trying to dry out some ethyl bromide that you just made, you know, using calcium chloride might be a good thing because if there's any alcohol, trace amounts of alcohol, it'll soak that up too. But I mean, if you're trying to dry some methanol out, you know, you want to get the trace amounts of water out of there and you throw some calcium chloride in it, all it's going to do is soak up the alcohol. I don't use much of it, but I have a bag. Always remember though, fragrance free. Do not get any bags that, or this goes for any chemical you buy. You don't want to be getting anything. You don't want to be getting anything that you know has fragrances. That just means they added some more contaminant into it. And the less contaminants, the better it is. I don't know if you can just heat it up in the oven. It might it might decompose if you heat it. And this also forms a complex with alcohols, or lower, you know, not big alcohols, but the lower ones definitely, like ethanol, methanol. Uh, so if you have trace amounts of alcohol in something, you can throw this in and see if it reacts with it. Now, the reason I found out about this is I was uh, using this to dry something, and it had some alcohol in it. And when I threw it in, instead of it getting like crystals, usually the powder will turn into like a crystalline substance when it incorporates the water molecule or whatever molecule into the crystal lattice. But when I threw this in, it reacted with the water and it complexed again, but it looked more like phlegm, like someone spit a hawker into my stuff that I was trying to dry. And so anyway, it's just a little FYI. Got me a drying tube here. Basically, I usually use calcium chloride because I like how it comes in flakes, which you'll see here in a second. I saved this tube after an experiment. And basically I'm going to put it now. So we have three things we can use this for. One is to dry out organic solvents. You can throw this calcium chloride in. It'll soak up any trace amounts of water, and then you can filter it out and you can distill your stuff just to make sure that you have all the salts out. Number two, you can make a coordination complex with um, alcohols, mainly small alcohols. Uh, that way they turn into a solid. You can filter them out. Uh, and last but not least is when you're doing a reaction that needs to be dry. You can put a drying tube on, like I just showed you a couple seconds ago, and you put that in series with the outlet of your system, and that way any air that gets in will have to travel through the calcium chloride and will be dried before it hits the reaction and messes it up. Another thing that calcium chloride damper is good for is it's a source of calcium for calcium salts. If you want the calcium salt, chloride because you want to make other calcium salts, then this is a better product to get. Leslie's Pull Hardness Plus. As you can see, it's almost mostly all calcium chloride. A little bit of the table salts. Better than the damp rid. I don't like going into pool places where they sell pool supplies. They're always on you like they're some kind of car salesman or something. Like, you know what I mean? I don't like that harassment. So I don't go into those places that much unless I have to. I'd rather just go to Lowe's and get some damp rid. But if I was going to use it to make salts, this would probably be a better deal. But using it because it's anhydrous to soak up water, it's just as good as this. I mean, they're both real good. So if you take your calcium chloride and you mix it with some sodium hydroxide, remember we made chromium hydroxide this way. What will happen is the calcium hydroxide precipitates out and the sodium chloride stays in solution, right? Then you can mix that with any acid you want to make your salt. You know what I mean? If you want a sulfate salt, you put it in sulfuric acid. You want a chloride salt, you put it in chloric acid, hydrochloric acid. You want a nitrate salt, you put it in nitric acid. Now, I don't know if these are stoichiometrically correct or whatever. I just did this real quick just to give you the gist that how it's a source of calcium salts. You know what I mean? You make your hydroxide, and then you can just an acid-base reaction. What's an acid and the base make? It makes salt water, right? You get the metal from one, you get the anion from the other one, and that makes your salt. And of course, an acid has a hydrogen in it, and a base has a hydroxyl, an OH, right? Hydroxide. That makes your water, salt water. So it's a source of calcium salts also. Can you make this stuff anhydrous? Supposedly, some people say you can. I've never tried it. It's too cheap for me. I don't use it that often. So it doesn't matter. But you, I hear that if you can do it, it's very hard to drive the water off. It's very tough. And always remember, science is great.